Hello, everybody, and welcome to Cine-Picks. This is where we pick movies for each other that one of us hasn't seen. And today it was Michaela's turn to pick a movie. Michaela, what movie did you pick for me?
So the movie that I picked for you, Kevin, is the 2008 French horror extremity film Martyrs.
Yes,
Yes,
Martyrs.
very
Okay.
interesting horror movie. If you could describe this movie, what would you say it's about?
Basically, it seemed to be it's about a a girl who escaped from a torture scenario is super mysterious. Who did it? Why did they do it? I don't know. 15 years later, she decides she's going to get revenge on the people who tortured her, so she busts into their house and kills them all, and their children too. And you find out that that was only to uh, appease her inner demons, which is in the form of a scary naked lady that attacks her constantly. And then you find out it's all in her head. And then she winds up killing herself. But that's not actually what the movie is about. Yeah, the movie is about a secret organization that is trying to get information on the afterlife by creating what they call martyrs, which are people who are able to withstand torture. And so far, they haven't been able to find anybody, at least not in a long time, until now, when this girl's best friend gets captured by this organization and then tortured until she reaches transcendence, where she gets a glimpse into the world beyond. That did I describe it well?
Yeah,
There we
I think that's actually, yeah. I mean, I can fill in some of the plot holes and some of the confusing elements that are in it because I know that there are some things in there
go.
that are up to interpretation. Um, because there's a lot of different themes in this movie, and everybody has a different idea about what it's about. Some people are like, the true meaning of this film is like, a lot of people are like, the true meaning of this film is our weird fascination with what happens after death.
Mm-hmm.
And is there life beyond death? And what means are we willing to go to learn about what comes after we die?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but see, most of the time, when people die, they're dead, and they cannot relay what happens to them after they die.
Mm-hmm.
So these people have the wonderful idea, okay, instead of putting people in near-death experiences, risking them dying without being able to relay what they see in their near-death experience, we're going to prolong the near-death experience as long as we possibly can while still keeping the person alive. So the goal is to keep the person alive, which also brings up another theory that people have about this movie, which is what if it's not actually about what happens after you die, but what happens when you're alive? And the demons that you have to live with, and whether they're worse than what you will find after death. So it's just, I don't know. If you could, I honestly think that you could go either way with this film, and depending on the way that you, depending on which path you choose, it alters the way that you look it alters the way that you look at the film. Because
Mm-hmm.
I remember the first time I saw this film, I went in knowing like nothing about it. I saw it on a controversial movie list because I'm that kind of weird person that's like, oh, it's controversial and it's banned in blah 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 countries. Like now I kind of want to like watch it.
Mm-hmm.
So I watched it and like I was shocked, but I went with the first thing of like, oh, this is like this weird metaphorical thing of like what happens after we die.
Yeah.
Because that's what the cult is like obsessed with. That's their whole thing is let's bring people to a point of of let of a point of submission until they just release themselves and accept their fate, and that's when they transcend. I forgot what my point was. That was the yeah, and then they and then they have so basically I went in what I got from watching it the first time was that you don't want to know what happens after death.
Hmm.
Uh, that or once the woman who's the leader of the cult at the very end, she finally figured out what lies in the other world,
Hmm.
and she ends up killing herself. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
She ends up killing herself. So I was like, okay, so this is like a cautionary tale of like this what happens when we get too close to figuring out what's at the end. But the second time I watched it, which was this last night and today, um, I started looking at it with a different lens in terms of like the way that like people live while they're alive. Because if you shift the focus from like, because if we don't want to know what happens after death, we have to deal with what is in front of us, which is living now. So it's
Hmm.
just, I don't know, it's just kind of, it's such a wild, like, two-part story. I don't know if you noticed, but watching it a second time, I didn't realize it's basically two films.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, that's what I realized. Was I made a note. Where was it? Oh yeah, I said because I thought that the story was about Lucy, who is the original girl who escaped and then 15 years later went back and killed the people. Um,
mhm.
I thought the story was about her, and and there was kind of like this mystery of, is this crazy lady a real lady or not? Why does she come and disappear and like, because it
Yeah.
seems like she might be real. She's really scary, and like that's the horror element. She's the monster, and we have to figure out what's her deal. Why does she keep coming in and killing, or why does she keep coming in and like slicing up Lucy? Like, because really, she comes in and attacks her with a knife multiple times and just cuts
It's
her up.
brutal.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so
I
I
kind
thought,
of think that's even more
yeah.
brutal than the family getting killed.
Mhm.
I think that's what like, the first thing that made me wince. It
Right.
was that, and then when the mom dies, when like Lucy figures out that the mom is still alive, and she just bashes her head in
Mhm.
with a hammer,
Right.
just to show everything.
Mhm.
Like it's
But
brutal.
I thought that the movie was about Lucy, and so I was really interested. I was like, who is this crazy lady? What's the deal with Lucy? Like, what's going on? And then but then it was revealed that uh the crazy lady is not real. It was all in Lucy's head, and Lucy is the one who is cutting herself up, and that was revealed in the first 30 minutes of the movie. I remember when it was revealed, I checked the time, like what, like how long has we going? It's like 30 minutes into the movie, and I'm like, revealed too soon. I'm like, they should have kept it going a little bit longer. But then I realized like
Yeah,
the movie's not even about her. But the thing is, I really liked that part of the story. I liked
I
Lucy.
did too.
I like Lucy. I liked the monster. I thought she was scary. I thought it was really interesting. And the fact that they just wrapped up that whole storyline in the first 45 minutes of the movie really, I was not that interested in Anna. And I'm not interested in the cult as much, you know.
Yeah,
I'm not interested like I just wasn't interested in the torture. So really the last half of the movie I just wasn't really that interested. I was kind of bored.
yeah.
Like I
I
was
kind of feel
I wanted to see more of Lucy. I wanted to yes, just I wanted more of that. That part. I wanted.
I feel like Lucy, they built her character up really
Mhm.
well. It's
Yeah.
kind of like a hereditary thing kind of happens. I don't know if you've seen Hereditary yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like, do you know in Hereditary where they build Charlie up so much as a character only to
Mhm.
kill her off in the first half an hour of the film?
Yeah.
And then she's gone. You think the entire movie is about Charlie. It's actually not about Charlie.
Mhm.
So I feel like this film kind of does that sort of thing where you think it's going to be about Lucy and they built her character up so well. And
Mhm.
this actress is, I think all of the acting is really great.
Yeah.
Like, I think Anna sometimes gets a little melodramatic,
Mhm.
but the girl who plays Lucy is like she's gut wrenching. Like
Mhm.
it's a really really good performance, and so I felt like Lucy was just so fascinating. I kind of wanted to see more of her too, but also I understand why they had to end it there
Yeah.
because her like there wasn't growth. There wasn't any more growing for her to do from like a mental standpoint. I
Yeah.
mean, that was like a breaking point. That's what she's waited her whole life to do, and now that she's finally done it, now what's she gonna do?
Hmm.
So I mean, it could have been interesting to watch her heal, maybe, and then come out of this like a changed person, but
Yeah.
she's had so many demons that she can't escape them,
Hmm.
you know?
Right.
Yeah, it's interesting. My question is, who do you think the lady is that is attacking her?
The scary lady.
Yeah, because you refer to
Um.
her as the scary
Yeah.
lady.
Because they show her when she in like a flashback moment when Lucy was escaping. She saw another woman who was also being tortured. Right.
Hmm.
But it's not confirmed whether that woman was real or not, or if that was just a demon, or it was just a something in her mind that was part of her madness. So we don't know if she was ever a real person. We don't know. But after seeing, the other lady, I think her name was Sarah, the other tortured lady that Anna finds,
Hmm.
and seeing the scars and everything, seeing that like somebody who looks like that could definitely have existed at the same time Lucy was being tortured too. So she could have been a real person. Maybe she was, maybe she's not. I don't think it actually matters if she was a real person or not. The fact that she was haunting Anna is kind of enough. That's Anna's personal demons. Um, that also the
But you mean Lucy's?
or Lucy, yeah, it was Lucy's personal demons. That's
Like her
her
guilt.
her
Yeah.
her little thing that's haunting her, like her little bit of madness. Also, like the kind of the idea that Lucy has to kill the people who tortured her in order to stop this lady from, haunting her. That also could be some sort of delusion that Lucy made up for herself, because like nobody really told her that, or at least it didn't seem like anybody told her like that's what has to be done. It's just something that she thought up. Maybe it's, but who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think it really matters as much. It's just
Yeah.
that is the example, that's what the rich lady was talking about when she's saying that, they start seeing things that don't exist, and so
Yeah.
that's the thing. Lucy was seeing something that didn't exist, and so
Yeah.
that
I
was,
never it never occurred to me that the woman in the beginning might have just been Lucy hallucinating her
yeah.
from the beginning.
So I don't
That's
know. She maybe not. I don't think
Well,
it
I don't
matters, but it
know.
is
Like,
interesting to think about.
I kind of think that like the woman was real. Like the
Hmm.
woman in the
Yeah.
physical form, the one that Anna finds is definitely real.
Yeah.
I don't think it's the same. The demon is definitely not the woman because the woman is a physical person that is like
Yeah.
in the basement and can't get out. But
Right.
I definitely think that like the demon is based off of the woman
Hmm.
that Lucy saw in the beginning that she
Yeah.
couldn't save because she could only
Hmm.
save herself. And so I think it's a manifestation of her guilt.
Right.
I'm just
Yeah.
trying to figure out, I was trying to figure out during the film what's the pattern of when the woman shows up.
Hmm.
Because, and why, so the woman, as in Lucy's demon,
Yeah.
her demon, the dead girl.
Right. Yeah.
I was trying to figure out, I'm like, is there like a pattern as to when she shows up and attacks? What is she trying to say? And because it's also not consistent. Like the way that the demon woman communicates with her, it's like first it viciously attacks her,
Hmm.
but then toward like after like a big climactic chase scene, which has music in it, and I don't think that there should be music in it. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
because it kind of ruins it. After one of the big chase scenes, like it's I didn't think about this until now. Lucy giving in to the What if Lucy was trying to what if Lucy was trying to become a martyr in the end after all? Because
Mm,
she does give in to her demon, which explains why the demon was being so nice to her. The
yeah.
demon is the inner demon. Because I was like, why is this demon attacking her? Like attacking her because guilt like will rack your brain. But
Yeah.
then in the end, she just like gives up and the demon is all of a sudden nice to her.
Hmm.
And like the demon comes in and they have this weird intimate moment where they're like embracing and like Lucy looks all defeated, and then the demon comes in and just straight up cuts her arms open,
Yeah.
uh, pretty violently. But Lucy doesn't really seem to fight back. It's almost like she just like accepts. She just
Hmm.
kind of accepts it, which makes me wonder. I wonder if that's like her weird form of succumbing to the crazy.
Hmm.
But because she's not a true martyr, she doesn't tran she doesn't transcend to see she doesn't get to that point of acceptance and letting go where she can continue living on with the pain.
Hmm.
So she ends up ending her life because the madness drove her to that point rather than transcending the madness. I'm like getting way deep into this, but like that never occurred to me until now. That
Hmm.
she technically, there is a point where she technically does let go because I think she realizes that there's nowhere that her life is going to go. Like she's completed her life's work, which is killing the family, and she has all
Yeah.
the guilt. She can't live with it anymore. I don't know. Like it's, there's so many interpretations for this. I think it's the woman. I think the demon is her guilt
Hmm.
over the
Yeah.
woman. Or maybe guilt that she didn't pick the right family. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
obviously that was
Well,
the right
I can.
family. But like she definitely went in and was just like, I saw him in a newspaper, so I'm gonna go in and take my
Yeah.
revenge.
Well, and she was right though. That they were the people who actually did torture her. The thing is, what she didn't know was that this conspiracy is much bigger than she thought. There are way more people involved, and you realize that at the very end when they have that huge gathering at the end, you realize there's a lot of people involved in this, which is one of the things I asked. I was like, who's funding this? Because this is a large operation, you know. Like,
Maybe they all just happen to be wealthy. Like maybe this
yeah.
is like that.
So I thought maybe it was like some sort of like government organization or something, But then it looks like it's just a bunch of wealthy individuals who are invested in discovering the secrets of the afterlife. And so
Mhm.
that's what it is. So it's nothing like super. It's nothing huge. It doesn't seem like it's huge. Like it's like a you know some sort of government conspiracy. It seems it's very small. It's just a couple of
Yeah,
wealthy people who decide that they're going to torture young girls to figure out the secrets of the afterlife. I don't know.
yeah. But it seems like motivated. I don't know. It's not like economically based.
Yeah.
Okay, I
So
have to like compare it to another horror movie really quickly
yeah.
called Hostel because Hostel has a theme that's like that where it's a whole like underground conspiracy where there's like this wealthy it's like this wealthy corporation that has clients from all over the world and the clients pay basically to live out their fantasy of killing people that they kidnap
Hmm.
slowly. And so it's just like this whole underground chamber of people just being tortured. But they're
Yeah.
doing that, like the motivations between for each person's weird fascination with that isn't clear. Or like I like in this movie that every person in here is united under this weird, almost religious type motive.
Yeah.
And they're all so into it that they have no problem just heartlessly torturing and killing people. Like there
Hmm.
wouldn't be any way I think to like break their armor because they're very devoted to that
Yeah.
philosophy of being a martyr. Like I don't
Hmm.
know.
But so one thing I was confused about was what's the point? Like, obviously, these people are very devoted to trying to discover these secrets and everything, that they're willing to go through great lengths and everything. But what's the point? And that wasn't really described very well in the movie. Where and
Yeah.
so that's where it lost me. Where I was like, I don't. You see like you see the pictures of like the people who have been tortured and everything, and you see other people who they have tortured, Lucy and then a couple other people as well. And you also get to watch Anna get tortured. There's a whole 30-minute sequence of just her getting tortured. So but for what? What is the point? And that wasn't answered. At least it wasn't satisfying to me. Like I didn't get like what is the point of all of
For the
this? Like
transcendent.
yeah,
It's
but
the transcendent of wondering
why
what
do they
happened
care?
after you die.
Like why do they care? How do they benefit from knowing? You know what they
Maybe
have
so
to get
they
something to
can live their
transcend.
lives accordingly. Maybe
Uh,
so that they can live their lives accordingly, or maybe they're just like, because I feel like that's a real fear. Like everybody kind of wonders, like, what happens after you die? Is it just an eternal oblivion of nothing?
hmm
Is it just nothing? Or is there a place that you have to get to that you have to to get earn your way there? Kind of like how people believe in like, I don't know, like heaven and earning your spot or whatever. I don't know. I do
Well,
wish they made that
if
clear.
that's if that's the point, then they've lost their spot in heaven because they've been torturing all these people for so long.
And
Yeah,
also, how come she didn't just torture herself when she was younger?
right. Yeah, well, that's what I was wondering. Like, so when she was when she was explaining all of this stuff to Anna before Anna was tortured, I was like, why don't you try to reach transcendence? Like, do you think you can't take it? Like you're here like talking smack about all these other girls that you tortured that like couldn't take it, and I'm like, what? You can't take it? Is that what you're saying? Like,
Maybe
what are
she's
you,
afraid it'll
chicken?
go wrong. What if she's afraid it'll go wrong and that she'll die? And she
Yeah,
fears death so much that she wants to know what's on the other side, but she doesn't want to be there yet until she knows for certain.
right.
So she has
Yeah,
no qualms with killing other people. It just comes down to herself.
I
So I
guess
don't
so.
know.
Here's something that I oh yeah, something a note that I made about Anna is Anna leaves too many things unfinished. First, her sandwich, which she takes one bite of and then throws it out the window when she hears a phone ringing. I'm like, you're just gonna waste that sandwich? Like, what are you doing? Why did you throw it? Oh my god. And then she, while she's in a conversation with her mom, just leaves the phone on like, yeah, just leaves the phone on the table, like doesn't even hang it up, and to
Hmm.
go like look for something else. And I'm like, so I was like, Anna leaves too many things unfinished. At
That's
least
true.
at least hang up the phone.
Distracted a lot,
If you're not gonna talk anymore, just hang it up. Why are you leaving her on the line like that?
right? I mean, that's, yeah. So decisions are questionable.
hmm
I
And
think everybody's decisions are questionable,
yeah,
but I feel like it's intentional. Like I feel like the people who made this movie didn't want to give us a conclusive answer as to why people do specific things in this movie sometimes.
yeah,
It's up to interpretation. Like they give you the options, but they don't exactly tell you which one it is, which can
yeah.
mean it can be a little confusing on first watch, but I don't know. Maybe
But
that's what some people like about the movie.
yeah, I think the sandwich bugs me the most though.
The
It
fact that
looked
she,
like a really good sandwich, and I was like, I could go for a sandwich like that right about now. And then she throws it out the window, and I'm like, hey, there's starving Kevins in this world who would be happy to have that sandwich. Like, come on.
oh my God.
So,
Nah, true. Rip sandwich.
right.
Rip. Um,
So, it's interesting when I was looking at The Wikipedia page for this movie is there's not a lot of information on it, but it seems like so production wise, it seemed like it was difficult to get this movie made. There are basically three main reasons from what I've read. One, a lot of studios didn't want to produce it. It was, it's subject matter and everything. It's not appealing to a lot of studios. But there was one. It was a television studio who decided uh, they wanted to make it. But after they found the studio to produce it, there were two other issues. One was special effects, and which I have to say were pretty good in this movie. The makeup effects were pretty good.
Yeah. I feel like nothing was CGI'd.
No, yeah, it all seemed very
Everything was
practical, especially
practical
like
effects.
full body makeup. There's several full body makeup applications in this movie. I think at least three full body makeup applications that I could think of. There might maybe more, but I can think of three at
Yeah.
least.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, the woman down in that basement,
hmm
I just like there's some there are violent actions
hmm
that make me cringe, but I've never just cringed looking at somebody's wounds before.
yeah,
Like none of this woman in the basement, none of her wounds are like open and bleeding,
hmm
but it's all of the scarring.
yeah,
Just that you see, like you cringe. It's like you feel. I feel like that's the thing about this movie that differentiates it from other graphic movies, is that you can. It's like you look at the characters and you can just feel everything as it's happening.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? There's moments where I actually like I winced because I was like, ugh, ugh. Like the demon and the with the shredding
hmm
down Lucy's back. Oh my God. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
yeah. So,
I
yeah.
have to put my sandwich down, Kevin. I have to toss it out the window.
Yeah.
Rip.
So there's a lot of yeah. So the makeup effects is very technical. So like I said, that was a big hurdle to get over. That probably a lot of budget went into the makeup effects as well. The third thing that was difficult about making this movie was casting the actors. A lot of actors didn't want to do it, not because of subject matter, and not because yeah, like not because of like the type of movie it is or the nudity. The big issue was the crying, especially the actress who needed to play Anna, because Anna spends most of the second half of the movie just crying, and a lot of actresses just didn't want to do it, and so that was the third hurdle to get over to get this movie made was casting Anna, because a lot of actresses just didn't want to do it. So yeah, and
It's a
the actress they finally casted, I think she did a pretty good job.
yeah. Honestly, like as a person that has now played multiple roles that involve crying
hmm
multiple times but in front of other people,
hmm
I can say that I've experienced, it is kind of a weird I feel like the reason that this movie like weirdly hits a point with me is
hmm
because there is a point where you are so exhausted from fighting so hard or so exhausted from doing something like crying that
hmm
you just after a point you can't cry anymore and you just go numb and you can't like it's hard to feel because you feel so much.
Yeah.
So of course I don't experience it on the level as this character, good lord, but like I understand that like there is a weird point where you in order to move forward, in order to exist, you have to turn off a part of the person that makes you human in order to just and you like you some you'll do it subconsciously. Sometimes you don't even make the conscious decision to do it. Like I
hmm
think like in this film, I think Anna made the conscious decision to do it because she had that weird internal monologue conversation with Lucy, where Lucy was just like, you just have to let go. That's the only way to live. The only way to live is to let go. So contradictory. But like, so she makes the conscious decision, but a lot of people just don't. Like, it's just something that happens as a means of survival. Um,
Yeah.
so I think that, yeah, having played characters that cry, it can get so exhausting that after you do that so many times, you just feel like you feel emotionally just kind of numb for the rest of the time after you're done with that. Um, so I get why people wouldn't want to play it because it's just physically demand, and then having to do that too for the entire length of not just like a show, but for like, the shooting of production, like
Hmm.
having to do that every single day for hours and hours and hours
Yeah.
uh, is just, yeah, it looked exhausting
Hmm.
and felt exhausting, and that's exactly how it should feel. But it's
Right.
not like it was pleasant. It's not a pleasant experience, and it's not supposed to be.
No. Some things that made me confused, like the timeline, how long does it take to reach transcendence? Anna seemed to reach it pretty quickly, you know, which kind of makes you wonder, like, or maybe that's a good thing in a sense where now they know how fast it takes to reach transcendence. So now they don't have to torture people for years and years. They know that they can just do it in a couple weeks and it's done. You know, so that way
But
they
they
don't.
never really realized how they got there, though, because
Yeah,
if it took Anna what like maybe a few days of like intense beatings
yeah,
to reach that transcendence, and ultimately what happened to her is that she was force fed and then beaten in a
hmm,
pattern. So
yeah,
she was force fed and then beaten, and then
and
force fed and beaten, and then until finally they just skinned her alive. But that's after she had that conversation in her head with
hmm,
Lucy, where they both mutually agreed that she just has to let go.
hmm,
So she wasn't resisting anymore. Now but the other woman we never saw her, what
hmm.
happened to her, if if she experienced torture that was worse than Anna.
Yeah, it seemed like it seemed a lot worse.
Tell
I
me
mean,
what's wrong.
until Anna got skinned alive, it seemed like the other woman's torture was much worse.
Man,
Another thing is, if the
so
only
long though.
yeah, also
That long fighting is that, oh my God.
yeah, another thing is the only way to really tell if somebody's reached transcendence is to look in their eyes. There's a certain look in their eyes that you can
Yes,
tell they've reached transcendence. So if that's the only way to tell, why would they bolt this thing over this other woman's eyes? You know, how are you supposed to tell if she's reached transcendence or not if you can't even see her eyes? They're
that's
like,
true.
what's up with that? So this,
Maybe they were trying to drive her crazy by depriving her of light.
yeah, but still, you need to see her eyes because what if she reaches trans? Because the transcendence period is not permanent. Like Lucy, she was in transcendence for like 2 hours before coming back out, right?
Mhm.
So what if in those 2 hours she's got the thing on and nobody knows if she's reached transcendence or not?
Yeah, that's true.
You know, it was like
But what if
I don't know.
but wouldn't you have been able to tell from her body language because she would have just gone
No,
completely numb and just faked it
the
out,
only way to
right?
tell is through the eyes. That's
Huh.
that's the only thing that they tell you. At least that's the only thing they told me as an audience member is the look in
Mhm.
the eyes.
I don't even know what to say about this movie because I don't want to say that it's entertaining, like,
No,
because that's a bad word.
yeah,
It's not entertaining to watch people getting tortured, but
hmm,
at the same time, the way it's like the acting and the way that it's shot and the graphic no holds like nature of the way that they show graphic violence, but combined with the emotional element
hmm.
from the acting makes it weirdly like a fascinating movie to me. Like, maybe I'm a sick person. Am I a sick person for enjoying this movie?
I don't
Like,
know. No. So I have to be honest. During the torture scene, which was a good 25 minutes of the movie, I wasn't fully invested in it I realized at this moment that there were not going to be any subtitles for a little while, so I decided to make some hot chocolate. So the movie was still playing at the same time, but like I wanted to. I recently made a bunch of chocolate fudge, and I wanted to melt it and turn it into some hot chocolate, and and so during the torture scenes, that's what I was doing. And so I could still see it from the kitchen, but I was not
Yeah.
100% invested in it.
Honestly, I don't blame you
But
though
uh,
for
but I
that.
don't but I don't think I missed very much. Like because it seemed like it was force feeding, beating, and force feeding, beating, and that seemed like that was it until she got filleted alive. But
Right.
that
It
was
could have been done. I mean, yeah, it could have been done in like a 30-second montage.
yeah.
It didn't have
But
to
I
allow
mean,
drag
I
on.
understand why they did it. That's the whole point of the movie. It's the gravitas of the whole situation. It's to really like create that environment of like hopelessness. They kind of want you as an audience to get a taste of what Anna is feeling. And that it's also the movie would only be like 45 minutes, so we got to stretch it out somehow. Um, and they filmed it, so why not just give it to you anyways? So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so I understand why they did it. It's fine. It's not the worst ever. As I was saying, like House of
Yeah.
Freaks is an hour and a half of torture porn, and it's not the.
Right.
Yeah, I got 20 minutes into that movie, and I said no more. I'm done.
Oh my God.
But yeah,
Yeah,
like I
there's
mean,
only
talk
so
about
long you can
controversial
watch
films.
something.
That's.
Yeah. I feel like when it comes to like torture scenes, I don't know, we could go into analyzing what makes a good torture scene, but I
Hmm.
do feel in that particular one, I feel the fault with it, with the second half of the movie, is that one, we don't know enough about Anna to
Hmm.
like really be invested in her as a character. So we don't
Yeah,
really, we almost, it's almost like we don't really care. Also, we kind of see where it's headed because we're
yeah.
a little
Like
jaded. We already
I
know how places
knew.
go.
Yeah, I knew that Anna was going to reach transcendence. Like, otherwise, there's no other reason for us to watch her get tortured so much. So I knew from the beginning that she was going to reach transcendence. As soon as, like, that was established and that Anna was going to be the next torture subject, I was like, okay, well, she's the one to do it. Otherwise, what's the point of the movie? And turns out she was the one to do it. So, there you go.
Yeah.
But
And she was the one to
yeah,
do it, but then we never find out. But
but,
then we never find out what
yeah, but I
happened
don't care.
to Transcends.
It, that's the thing. Like by the end of the movie, it's like I don't care. So it's fine. Uh, but yeah. Although when she got flayed alive, that reminded me of some other movies. Like Hellraiser 2. Uh, there's a scene of the woman who she doesn't have any skin, so it's like very similar makeup effects to as that one. And also I don't know if you've ever watched the show Happy. Of It's like this New York cop who can all of a sudden see his daughter's imaginary friend, and then there's a there's a scene in the or yeah in the second season. There's like this crazy assassin guy who's also like a torture expert who uh he captures this guy and skins him alive, and that was yeah similar makeup effects. Although that's a comedy, so but
Ah.
it's a very dark comedy, but it's also it's a funny scene where uh he he skins this guy alive and he's hanging on meat hooks, and the guy's like kill me, and the torture guy is like, well, technically, you're not gonna survive this, so I've already killed you. And so then the guy's like, oh, okay.
Ah.
And then-
I mean,
yeah, it's
I
like,
mean,
I guess, okay.
yeah,
So,
that's true. Your body, I don't know. Has there ever been anybody in like living history that actually has been like that has survived being like? Because by the end of the movie, Anna is still alive. Like she's incubated in a glass
ish. Yeah, well,
cage.
that's so
She's not functional, but she's alive.
she's being kept alive. I don't think she could actually survive on her own, though. I don't think you
Hmm.
would want to, anyways, but,
Yeah. Wait, skin does grow back though.
Skin grows back from skin. Skin can like intense burn victims, they have to get skin grafts. So, and so you have like you take skin from another part of your body and you put it on to like the burn, and then it's able to grow from there, and it like gives the starting point for the skin to grow. But like if you take all the skin out, it can't grow back because there's nothing to grow from. It's gone.
Wait, but has
Also,
people
the risk
there?
of the well, so maybe it's gonna start here and just gonna grow, maybe. Um, but also the risk of infection. You know, like all of a sudden your body's not being protected by anything. That's your skin is like the shield for the rest of your body. But now like infection, your body is super susceptible to infection, and so there's eventually you're gonna get sick and and infected, and it's yeah, you'll die
I feel
eventually.
like I'd die of
So
shock.
I don't think she can actually survive. I think if she's taken off of life support, there's no way she can actually survive. But I don't know. She'd probably go into a coma, you know, before she, you know.
Yeah.
So
I guess
that's the thing. They said that
maybe
she
it
stopped
depends
talking.
on what your body can handle versus what your brain will
Yeah,
allow.
right. And so they said that she stopped talking. Like she was able to talk, and she told the mistress, but now she stopped talking, so she's probably in like a catatonic state. And I'm not a medical professional, but I wouldn't expect her to come out. You know, I
She's just
think
stuck.
I think she's done for.
She was. What if she was just stuck in transcendence for forever?
Maybe.
She's still. What if she went back into transcendence and she's still just gonna remain there? I don't know.
Yeah, who knows?
I don't know.
But
Maybe I don't
I
know what
don't
the person
care.
feels
I don't.
like. I
That's the thing about
really
this movie. I'm
thought,
just like I don't care anymore. I don't know.
oh, I don't know, like what lies beyond death, whatever world, because they keep referring to it as like a world,
Mhm.
like a different universe, like a
Yeah.
different plane of plane of existence or
Mhm.
whatever.
Yeah. Well,
So I
and
mean,
I thought for a second I thought that maybe because before they call it the world beyond, and I thought like, is this like another dimension that they're trying to get to? And like, ooh, now that's interesting. And then I realized that no, it's not another dimension. It's literally the afterlife. And I'm like,
but
really?
it could be another dimension. We don't really know what
Yeah,
happens after we die. We could just join the Earth and space-time continuum.
right? Yeah.
We could be
But when I found
home.
out about those like literally the afterlife, that's when I was like, that's kind of cheesy. Like, who cares? Like, like if it was like they're trying to get to another dimension, like similar to Hellraiser, where like there's another like, because that's kind of the theme of Hellraiser, where you experience like the greatest pains and torture, and you've been transcended, and now you've become like a demigod of this other universe, and like that's kind of the theme of Hellraiser, and now you kind of understand why people would go through such lengths to reach this existence. Whereas this one is literally they're just trying to get a glimpse into the afterlife, and I'm like, no, that's kind of lame.
I mean, I feel like they could have taken it the dimensional route, but then it would have been more science fiction-y.
But it would have been much more interesting, I think. I don't know. At
No,
least for me, it would have been more interesting. But oh well. Mm,
there are different takes. I
yeah.
do, I do have to say, I love that we have now watched two movies back to back that we've had very different opinions about.
Right. Yeah.
Because, like, I know that you love Metropolis and it hits home with you. And I
Mhm.
was just kind of like, oh, there's a lot going on in here and I'm confused. And this was like the flip opposite where I'm
Yeah.
just like, I can't stop thinking about this because it's just like it's a disturbing concept, but also the graphic violence was just like also disturbing. And now you're kind of like, I went and made some hot chocolate during the torture scenes.
Yeah.
It was cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, yeah, I feel like I'm just glad that it wasn't like super. gratuitous because those are the
Mm-hmm.
movies that make me feel really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, what is this all for? I'm like, is there like there has to be a motive
Mm-hmm.
behind and like a story behind, like a reason for the extremity of it.
Yeah.
So like, I'm glad that
Yeah.
it
I mean,
almost seems warranted.
it's yeah. I feel like they could have been more extreme with everything,
But how much
and
more extreme?
I
Like,
wonder
no.
how much of it was influenced by budget, because it didn't seem like it was a huge budget movie, and
Hmm.
so like I wonder if the budget held them back from going further. You know?
But also, how much further could they have gone without it becoming too unrealistic and like fictional
Yeah. No.
almost?
Well, I mean, like the as far as the torture scenes, they could have gone further. You know, like because you don't see them torturing any of the other people except for Anna. Anna's the only one that you actually get to see being tortured. You see the
Hmm.
aftermath of the two ladies who have been sliced up, and you see the aftermath of uh, was it Lucy? But you don't actually see them being tortured. Whereas uh, Anna, her torture scene is just her getting beat up, like literally just punched and kicked,
Yeah.
until she's unconscious and then force fed, which budget wise does not cost a lot of money to film, whereas constantly getting sliced up and like and the type of torture that the other women were obviously subjected to, budget wise, special effects wise, makeup wise, it costs a lot more money, and it also takes more time to film,
Mhm.
and it's just the budget would have doubled or tripled if you had to actually film that kind of stuff. And
At the
so
same time, while I hate to interrupt you, I'm
yeah.
sorry, but
It's
I do
okay.
want to say that I do feel like the fact that they flayed her alive at the end kind of makes up for the fact that her torture throughout is
Hmm.
basically just being force fed
Yeah.
um
And so
and
that it is,
bleeding. There's no
yeah.
blood either. There's no blood during that entire torture scene. There's lots
Yeah.
of bruising,
Hmm.
bruising all over, which just like, oh, also makes me cringe because I'm like, I've had bruises like that, and
Hmm.
it's, oh
Yeah.
my god, it's painful. Every step you take is like is so painful. But like, there is no blood.
Hmm.
And I think you come to expect that from that first bit of the film, from like the first hour of the film. It's
Hmm.
just extremely just bloody and there's blood all over the place. Um, and then you get to that end scene and there's none of it
Hmm.
at all.
Yeah.
But you still played, so maybe they were just taking it kind of easy on her to save up for the ultimate reveal.
Yeah. That might be it, but
Mhm.
I feel like it was a budget thing. I feel like the filmmakers wanted to go further. They wanted to make it more graphic, but I it really feels like it was influenced by the budget, because
Mm,
it costs money. To do that kind of effects takes time. Time is money because you have to pay the crew to film and everything. Also, like there's extra makeup effects that cost money, and it's just a lot. Yeah, and it's very demanding on the actors and everything. But I think I maybe I'm wrong, but it really feels like it was a budget thing. Also, there's another thing that might influence it as well, and that is the actress, her personal willingness to be nude, because the other women were obviously, they were naked and they were cut and they were kept naked, but Lucy was never nude until the very end, just before she was filleted. You never see her. Yeah,
yeah.
right. And so that could have also been the actress's decision to say that, like, I'm willing to be nude briefly, but not for extended periods of time, like, during the torture scenes, and that
Mhm.
might have been the actress, her, that her putting her foot down as well,
Mhm.
because the
I don't
other,
think
so
she wasn't nude though. She was wearing the bodysuit for the flayed.
well, she was nude briefly. You get it, like, that's the thing. There was, I mean, it must. there's probably less than 5 seconds of like actual nudity on screen nudity of her, but
Mhm.
you do get a a brief
A glimpse.
shot, when they cut her shirt off. That's
Oh.
and so it's very very brief, and so she might have said like I will agree that for that scene, for that little clip, that, but
Mhm.
the rest of it I don't want to be nude, and I'm willing to cry. I will cry as much as you want me to cry, but I will not be nude. And so that might have been her her personal decision, and that's why they had to change the torture scene, so
Mhm.
to be something that was so she could keep her clothes on during the torture scene. um yeah. As far as torture, though, that's the thing, is the torture. It was, it's physically brutal, but it's not. It, it's not the kind of torture scene that makes me squirm in my chair while I'm watching. Like
Hmm.
I've seen other torture scenes in other movies that really make me like, I don't want to watch. This
Well, wait,
one,
wait, I
this
want
one
to
was
know
not.
now.
Well, I mean, like
What
the,
makes you tick? What makes Kevin tick?
I get, just like cringy stuff, like, I guess scenes where like there's a good torture scene in, what was it, the original Punisher movie. I forget who the actor was in there. It was the one with John Travolta as the bad guy. I don't know if you've seen that one. But the Punisher. Oh no, it wasn't the Punisher. It was the bad guy, John Travolta. No, it wasn't. It was his torture guy. So John. Anyways, he was torturing this guy where he needed to get some information from him, and this guy, he was covered in piercings. He had tons of like piercings all over his face, and so for this torture scene, while he's being interrogated, this guy's got a pair of pliers, and he's going and plucking all of his piercings off one by one with a pair of pliers. Like,
Oh,
yeah, like, ooh, very brutal, cringy, and just like, where is he? Where's the guy? I want to know, and just one by one, pulling him off, and then by the end of the or by the end of the scene, this guy's face is just, it's completely bloody, like, because he pulled out like his tongue piercing, his eyebrow piercing, his lip piercings, and his face is torn up and bloody, and like that. I feel like that scene is harder to watch than Anna getting beaten up,
mm-hmm.
personally. Like that, those types of scenes, and there's a lot of
Right.
movies like that have torture scenes that are like that, or people getting their fingernails pulled off, or
Mm-hmm.
even just like putting their hands in a press and just like crushing their hands slowly, stuff like that. That type of torture, those scenes, I feel like are harder to watch,
Yeah. They're
than Anna
also
getting
like
punched
the
in the
camera has
face.
dedicated time to zoom in on those scenes,
Yeah.
prey on the things that people really do
Hmm.
fear.
Yeah.
Like,
But Anna getting punched in the face for 20 minutes was not. I mean, it's brutal, but it you know it kind of it's
it's
not
not as
as
punishing as The Punisher.
as an audience member. It was not as hard to watch, or it wasn't like it didn't feel like torture. It felt like physical abuse, but not really torture. Like, and so that's which maybe that's what they were going for. Their specific type of torture in order to reach transcendence is more like physical abuse, physical and mental abuse, rather than like actually inflicting pain. You know,
Yeah.
so
You know what it also reminds me of? It also reminds me of V for Vendetta,
yeah.
um, the one with Natalie Portman
Mhm.
and I think Hugo Weaving playing in the Guy Fawkes mask. There's like a torture scene where Natalie Portman is like broken down
Mhm.
until she eventually like submits and is no longer afraid of death.
Yeah.
Um, which is like again like and that like involves a whole bunch of torture things with her as well that kind of make you cringe. Yeah.
Mhm.
I think we're all just used to watching. Maybe it just depends on what you view personally as cringy,
Mhm.
like what you feel the most. Because
Yeah.
if you've had like direct, because every person has something that's just like that will make them wince. Like I don't know,
Mhm.
like needles for me. I don't like things with needles.
Yeah.
So it's like there's a scene in the first Saw where the main character has to dive into hypodermic needles
Mhm.
to find the key. Um, and I just, oh my God, like I can't watch. I cannot watch because it just gets me because I have a fear of needles. So I guess it always just depends on what you find
Maybe.
cringy
Yeah.
in those torture situations. Also, all the not the excuses, all the explanations you provided before involve skin
Mhm. Yeah.
and breaking the skin and getting inside of your body
Mhm.
somehow. And none
Yeah.
of that happens to Anna, which kind
Right.
of makes sense then why we're kind of like,
Yeah. Right. It's like
yeah,
I the it would have been more like the audience would have felt a bigger impact if they had seen torture that was similar to the other women, especially like getting like the thing bolted to her head. Like that sounds it was that I felt like that was harder to watch when she was getting the thing on her head getting removed, and Anna was trying to take it off and using the screwdriver to like pry the things on, pulling it out, and there's blood. That was harder to watch than watching Anna get punched in the face for 20 minutes.
oh yeah.
You know.
I feel like everything in the first half of the film is really hard to watch.
Yeah.
I feel like that's specifically what people mention when they say this film is controversial
Hmm.
because it's just, oh yeah, that scene was hard.
Anyways, let's get down to
Anyway, yeah,
ratings.
let's do the
So
rating.
the
I,
so personally, this movie, I liked the first half, and then the second half, I found I started to drift off. I was kind of bored by it. Um, I think I kind of agree with most critics where they give it a 6 out of 10. It's a decent movie. It was well done, but it's just not my thing. You know,
mhm.
and it's not that I was grossed out. I was just kind of bored. But oh well. What about you? What do you think?
Man. So, okay, after talking with you and upon another viewing of this film, I still feel like it how do I describe this? All the points that you made were really valid,
Mhm.
especially about it being definitely more interesting at the very beginning and then it takes a dip at the end of the torture scenes because it becomes routine because we
Mhm.
kind of know how torture scenes work because we live in the 21st century and we've seen enough movies like this to kind of pre-predict things.
Yeah.
um, so I agree with you on that, but at the same time, like there's something about this movie that has stuck with me, and I
Mhm.
saw the movie maybe like, I don't know how many years ago. I think I was still living in New Mexico when I saw this film, but something about it stuck with me. And I think it was the emotional impact, not necessarily the graphic violence, because that was shocking. But
Mhm.
for me, it was like the emotional impact, the way that like Lucy eventually succumbs to her own demon, and then we find out that the demon is like there's just something that stuck with me in the philosophy of what they were trying to describe
Mhm.
with the transcendence thing, and then also the emotional weight is what stays with you. And the fact that it stays with you, I think, is a mark that there is something in this film that has been done. Like, I want to say that it's like people will either find it strange and obscure
Mhm.
and shocking, or they will find it like an absolute masterpiece. And I'm aiming more toward masterpiece because I don't want to say that the masterpiece is like definitive because again, it depends on the angle that you decide to look at this movie as. Um, but there is something about this movie that is deeply unnerving to me and disturbing, and for that I have to give it a good rating because it stuck with me
Mhm.
just personally as a person. So if I could give this movie a ranking, it's an 8 out of 10 for me.
Mhm. Okay.
It's an 8 out of 10. I take away 2 points because of the things that you brought up, but I still think it is something profound. Like in this world of horror movies, there is something weirdly profound about this movie for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For
Okay.
yeah.
Sounds
Would I
good.
recommend it for entertainment? No. Do I
Mm-hmm.
recommend it for a lot of deep thought and like when you just want to watch something that's so well acted? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I recommend that. So,
All right. Good.
all right, Kevin. So next on the Cinepick list, it is your decision. So what movie are you choosing for me?
Okay, so my movie for you, it's an Alfred Hitchcock movie called The Trouble with Harry. Yeah.
Mm.
And I'm excited to see what you think about it. I've showed it to other friends who are friends of Alfred Hitchcock, and they don't like it because it's very different from other Alfred Hitchcock movies. But
I haven't seen any Alfred Hitchcock movies though. So
so this
what
is
am I gonna?
yeah, this it'll be interesting because it's not a very good intro to Alfred Hitchcock, and I don't know. Because I personally I like Alfred Hitchcock. I think he's a cool it is. But as far as getting an idea of the uh the master of suspense that Hitchcock is, this movie is not it. But I think it's a fun movie anyways. So
Okay.
there we go.
Well, thank you so much for watching, all you Cinepickers. This has been Kevin and Michaela coming at you with Martyrs. Make sure to like, hit the subscribe button, and comment down below with, please, more suggestions on movies for us to watch. Wait,
Previously.
but there's not a thing of us waving goodbye.
Okay, ready, go.
Goodbye and bye!
Bye.